Okay. So this is Sports Talk Unplugged, and I just want to say that I have the honor of having Jim Wyatt. Um, Jim, I think you're the senior writer for the Tennessee Titans. Is that right?
That's correct. Yep, makes me sound old when you put the senior in front of it, but that is my title.
Yes, sir. um, well, I had a lot I wanted to talk to you about, but really I'm going to be pretty quick with it. I understand. Are you a Major League Baseball fan by any chance?
I am. I've been a Dodger fan since I was a little kid. Go all the way back to the '70s. My dad took me to Atlanta to see the Dodgers and Braves way back then. He was a Brooklyn Dodger fan, and so he had me cheering for the Dodgers. And so I'm obviously very excited right now. I usually have on a Dodgers hat. I don't have it on today, but I'm a big baseball fan. Have been my whole life, and obviously still kind of on cloud nine after the Dodgers won the World Series this year.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know if you knew this. I do know I did look you up a little bit. I know you went to Father Ryan High School, and I actually went to John Overton High School in
Oh
Nashville.
yeah,
And
home of Mookie Betts.
right, yeah, one of my classmates had actually mentioned that Mookie Betts actually went to Overton, and I was pretty excited about that. I didn't even know about that, but yeah, but you definitely know about it, so that's a big deal right there. But let me ask you this: I wanted to ask you about. I saw an article about the Titans activated running back Sonoris Perry from injured reserve. I just wanted to know your thoughts on that and why they decided to do that.
Well, what it does is it creates some interesting decisions down the road. Sonoris Perry played in a couple of games earlier this year. He got hurt. He was on injured reserve, and then they started the process with him a couple of weeks ago of letting him to return to practice, and they had to make a decision this week on whether or not they're going to put him on injured reserve or bring him back and let him compete, and that's what they've done. Now, Sonoris Perry joins, Derrick Henry. He joins, certainly Deontay Foreman, Jeremy McNichols, Kari Blasingame, who's a running back fullback, and then Darrington Evans, another running back who is a draft pick of this team. He is on designated for return that right now and on the verge of coming back. So this team is all of a sudden pretty stockpiled at running back, and I think some decisions are going to have to be made here, not only this week but maybe moving forward on just how many guys you can keep and who's going to be in that rotation. Because that guy, the backup running backs don't get a lot of work when Derrick Henry is on the team. So it'd be interesting to see what ends up happening there. But he is at practice, and he looks like he's pretty much back to full speed.
Absolutely. And I want to ask you too about I know the Titans that game that they played last, it was tough. But I know they decided to release punter Ryan Allen. What was the decision behind actually releasing him?
Well, there's some that kind of remains to be seen there. He punted in the team's game against the Bears, and you look at his stat line, and it was good. I mean, he averaged 50 yards a punt. Again, he was replacing Brett Kern, who's one of the best in the business, and Ryan Allen comes out, he averages 50 yards a punt on 8 punts. You know, just being objective here. I mean, while his average looks good, he hit some line drives, didn't have a lot of hang time. Is not wasn't necessarily one of these directional kickers who would put the ball out of bounds. I mean, balls were in play with him. So he punted against the Bears. They called up Trevor Daniel from the practice squad. He punted against the Colts. We all know that didn't go so well. He had a punt block that was returned for a touchdown. He shanked a punt that went just 17 yards. I think a lot of people in Nashville were surprised the team cut Ryan Allen. Now, the plan is to bring him back to the practice squad where he would rejoin Trevor Daniel, and then those guys would compete kind of moving forward on who the punter is going to be each Sunday. I know Mike Vrabel has said he liked what he saw from Daniel in practice. He's not going to judge him from one bad kick, talking about the 17-yarder. And I think now we're going to have a competition moving forward between Allen and Daniel and just kind of see what shakes out until Brett Kern's back, which is probably several weeks away because he's dealing with a wrist injury that will limit him for at least for the rest of this month.
Right. Absolutely. So I wanted to ask you. I know the schedule is coming up. I think the Titans are playing the Baltimore Ravens on the next game. Is that right?
Play the Ravens on Sunday, and then turn around and play the Colts, a team that just beat the Titans here in Nashville, not long ago, and then the Browns after that. So Titans have a tough road coming up. I mean, sitting at 6-3, obviously, uh, have slid back a little bit, when you compare it to that 5-0 start. So we've hit a pretty critical part of the schedule, and going into Baltimore, a team that the Titans ended their season last year in the playoffs. They're going to be ready to play. They just got beat by the Patriots. They're 6-3 as well, so it's a big game for a number of reasons. And obviously, Titans are going to have to play well to get a win.
Absolutely. And yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because the Titans did defeat Baltimore last season, actually in the playoffs. And I know everybody was shocked to see, especially on that end, on the Baltimore side, how the Titans came out and played pretty well, especially to Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. I wanted to ask you though, how do you feel that the Titans offense is doing this season? What are they hoping to do moving here on out to the end of the season?
Well, I think what they hope to do is to kind of regain some of the early season form. This team is scoring a lot of points early, really good in the red zone. Recent weeks kind of slid back a little bit. Have not been as good in the red zone, have not been able to finish off some drives. Made some uncharacteristic mistakes. Along the course of the last month of the season, had too many drop balls. So I think if, the Titans are looking to establish the run again, and keep doing that. That's something they've done really well this season. This is going to be important this week, facing a Ravens team that's not great against a run. And then, kind of, get your swagger back a little bit on offense. Finish off drives in the red zone. You know, make big catches when you have to. AJ Brown dropped a touchdown pass against the Colts. It kind of changed the look of that game early. If he makes that catch, the Titans go up 14-0. Maybe that game looks different. So you just can't you can't turn the ball over. You can't have drop passes, and you've got to be able to be successful in the red zone. I think those are some of the big keys on offense as we head into game number 10.
Right. Well, Jim, I thank you for having me on. I mean, thank you for. Well, I'm glad you came on with me. Let me just say that. And
And I've got a few more. If I've got another 5 minutes, William, if you need
oh,
me for
really?
anything else, I'm glad to do it. Yep.
Okay. Well, let me just say this. Right now, I think Pro Football Focus had the Titans actually second in the division. I think the Titans actually won more division games than the Colts, but they have the Colts actually ranked above the Titans right now. But as you see it, I mean, how do you feel like the Titans will shake out in winning the division in the AFC South?
Well, that's obviously the goal, and the Titans haven't won the division since 2008. It's been a long time. I mean, the Colts have had their run, the Texans have had their run. Titans, while they made it to the AFC Championship game last year, they didn't win the division, and that was the goal coming in. It's not going to be easy. I mean, the reason they've got the Colts ranked above the Titans, even though they're both 6-3, is again because the Colts came in here and beat the Titans. So if the Titans are going to win the AFC South, they got to figure out a way to beat Indy in Indianapolis in a couple weeks, and they've really got to finish this season strong. It's a tough road coming up, and not only the Ravens game and the Colts game and the Browns game that we talked about earlier, they've also got to go to Green Bay in December. They've got a game left in Houston, a game left in Jacksonville, got a game left against Detroit here in Nashville. Titans are gonna have to play a lot better than they have the last couple of weeks. Now look at the Colts schedule; they've played some of those same teams, and they seem to be, kind of establishing themselves a little bit. I mean, that Colts team I saw here on Thursday night looked really good, and Rivers, when he gets the ball out and he gets the ball to his playmakers, they're tough to beat. So
Mhm.
it's still doable, but Titans are gonna have to play better, and certainly better than they did last time against the Colts.
Right. I will say the Colts. I do have to take my hat off to them the way they played uh, that Thursday night game against the Titans. Obviously, our special games was a little bit off that night. Guy came in from the Colts and blocked the punt. Also, the shank punt, as you mentioned before, as well. But the Colts did have a good running attack. I think his name is Nico Himes, the other running back that they have from the guy that they drafted, I think in the first round last year for the Colts. But they actually did a pretty good job against the Titans. But I will say, leading on into the future, how do you feel that the defense needs to play a little bit better? Do you think Jadeveon Clowney needs to up his game a little bit, or do you feel like that he's actually doing as well as he should be doing in his play right now?
Well, I think everybody, needs to up their game because the defense is giving up way too many points. They're not getting off the field on third down. Opponents are making too many catches and turning those catches into big gains. The Titans, giving up at least 30 points in half of their games. You're not going to win a lot of games when you do that. You can win some shootouts from time to time, but you've got to get off the field because it helps keep guys fresh. It helps the offense, obviously. And I look at the Titans defense, and that's the biggest question mark moving forward. Can they get it figured out? Clowney is a part of that. I mean, they brought him in here, gave him a nice contract, a lot of expectations for him, and through 9 games, he doesn't have a sack. He hasn't been invisible. He's been disruptive. He's been in the backfield some. He's made some quarterback hits, but he's got to take his game to another level, like a lot of guys, and I think that he will. He's battled through a knee injury that they hope will eventually settle down. But the pass rush has got to be better. I mean, and that includes Clowney, that includes Harold Landry, that includes Derek Roberson, and that includes anybody else they get in the mix. And maybe they've got to figure out a way to send some extra guys, some blitz packages to help, get the job done to help out those outside backers.
Absolutely. And let me ask you this, because there's a lot of people who are just honored, to to see your work and see what you do, and just wanted to know like how you got started in your field and in your area in journalism, and what got you going in that area.
Well, it took me a while to get to where I am today, and I, obviously, had to pay my dues. I worked when I graduated from college. Uh, I started working a full-time job at a place called the Register of Deeds. It was a summer job that I had when I was in high school and when I was in college and when I graduated. Even though I graduated with an English degree and I wrote a little bit for my school newspaper, I was still really raw and needed some seasoning to really become a writer. I took my full-time job again. A register of deeds is where property deeds and mortgages and tax liens and much of real estate transactions took place. And then I started working at nights at the Tennessean. I was kind of one of the agate clerks. I would take phone calls from hole in ones at golf courses to bowling scores to high school basketball, football, volleyball, track and field, wrestling. I took those scores and kind of typed them in. And I did that at night after working a 40-hour job, full time during the course of the week. I probably worked 25, 30 hours a week, hoping to get a chance. And I kind of watched others while working at the Tennessean in Nashville. They gave me a chance to start riding a little bit. My first event I covered was the Tennessean Regatta. It was a sailboat race in Old Hickory Lake. Nobody would have wanted that gig. It was probably 35, 40 degrees, windy, and I was out there on a sailboat covering again a yacht race. But you got to do that kind of stuff to kind of get your chance, and that kind of led to some other events. Started covering some high school sports. Did that for a long time. Covered some small colleges, you name it, and I covered it. And eventually, I got myself in a position where I was working full time at the Tennessean, covering preps. Never dreamed that the Titans would move to Nashville, Tennessee, again, my hometown. And when the Titans moved to Nashville and the Predators moved to Nashville, all of a sudden Nashville was a two sport pro team. I mean, we had two professional teams in my hometown that I never dreamed would be here. I got a great opportunity in '99 to start covering the Titans and the Predators both, and now here we are, 2020. I've been to every Titans game except for one since 1999. That's preseason, home and away, regular season, playoffs. Went to covered the team in the Super Bowl during the '99 season. It's been a great run, and I covered them from 1999 to 2014, working for the Tennessean. I joined the Titans in 2015. Have been covering them that way ever since, working for the team. Great, been a great experience for me. Again, somebody that grew up in Nashville, loves sports, liked to write, kind of a dream job. I mean, I feel very fortunate to be in the position I'm in, and hopefully I keep doing it for a couple more years.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I just want to say you mentioned that '99 Titans run when they went to the Super Bowl. I was actually up at MTSU, and I thought they were going to lose that game against Buffalo. And I ran out the dorm room heading to work, and I heard people yelling, and I ran back to the dorm room, and it was over. They had got the touchdown, and I couldn't believe that they made it. They got that touchdown and they advanced all the way to the Super Bowl. So that's a time in my life I definitely remember. The Tennessee Titans surprising for sure. So let me ask you this: Is there where can people follow you? Do you have any accounts people can follow you online?
Yep, yeah, and the team's website is TennesseeTitans.com. It used to be Titans Online, but TennesseeTitans.com is where you can find my work. We've got a great, video staff and a great digital staff where there's a lot of, stuff on there from podcasts to videos to you name it, Titans, it's there 24/7. My personal Twitter account is at Wyatt Sports. It's also Instagram is at Wyatt Sports. I'm pretty much working around the clock, do periscopes before the game. I always reference those from my Twitter account. It's crazy how the job has changed. I used to, when I first got in, again, I was writing for the newspaper on deadline. You're writing for the next day. Now it's a 24/7 gig. You're putting stuff online. You're putting stuff out on Twitter, social media, and it's kind of an all-encompassing job. But it's a thrill to cover the NFL, and obviously a lot more fun when you win. But it's been a fun ride, and that '99 season was tremendous. I always tell people, the 2000 team I thought was even better, and that team lost in the playoffs to the Ravens. They were the number one seed and lost. So, heading into that game against Baltimore this weekend, I always have flashbacks of some of those days and some of those years, and Titans obviously trying to beat them in Baltimore again after doing it last year in the playoffs.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You took me back right there. I definitely remember all those games in that time. That linebacker they had, I think it was Ray Lewis.
Yes.
That definitely he was definitely a menace for the Baltimore Ravens at that time. I'm just glad that he's not playing for them now. So that isn't that's an advantage for the Titans right now. But let me say this, Jim, it's an honor to have you on. I really appreciate all the work that you do and all your insight and everything. And hopefully, I can talk with you soon, sometime in the future.
That sounds good. I didn't dream you went to Overton High School either. I drive by Overton on the way home, right off of Franklin Road. I live in Brentwood, so one of my college roommates played baseball at Overton. Obviously, Mookie Betts played at Overton when I was in high school at Ryan. Overton was the biggest rival. They had a great running back named Keith Davis, who was tremendous. Nick Kutris was the coach back then. They named a football stadium after him.
Mm.
So a great history there between Father Ryan and Overton, and glad we can meet up here, even though our schools were rivals during back in the day.
Yes, sir. Wow. That's something else. I know it's a lot of Overton people that when they hear this, they're gonna be like, gonna be surprised by that. Jim, thank you for coming on with me. It's been an honor and a pleasure, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Jim Wyatt.